I used to do lots of things.
I used to do things and I'd say things and Jesus I was evil. Take things and break things and Jesus I was evil. I never shook baby.
You know what we should do?
What?
We should do a react video to react videos.
That'd be cool.
I bet no one's done that.
Oh yeah, that's that's such a non-obvious twist on this growing trend.
Well, you were saying you can't. Do you watch a lot of react videos?
No, here's the thing. Like some of them are okay. Well, at least they started off okay, but now it's just getting ridiculous. So like Dave Rubin and the Daily Wire, like everyone at the Daily Wire now is just like, hey, watch us react to a clip from South Park. And then it's like, yep.
Yeah,
that's true. That's correct. Like,
yeah. That's an accurate portrayal of campus culture today. Yes, well done. Yeah. The only react videos I really like are like a bunch of black guys watching like a heavy metal react video and getting really into it. Because to me, it's like that's not music they would usually listen to. You know, obviously there are black guys who like heavy metal, but these are clearly like hip hop guys.
Yeah.
Who then will listen to like Danzig or something and love it, or watching them. I've watched one where I can listen to House of the Rising Sun by the Animals, and I like those. I like
those ones are good. Those types are good because it's like okay, this is like somebody from like so for example on a similar style one there's one she's like an opera singer like coach, an opera singing coach, and she'll respond to like Judas Priest, like other heavy metal bands.
I think I was just about to talk about her.
Yeah. Stuff like that, where it's like, okay, you're getting a different perspective. Like that's a good reaction.
Is she like super knowledgeable?
Yes.
Like she like breaks down like every. Yeah, she did. I've watched it a couple times. She does one of because I mean actually Danzig, Mother by Danzig is probably one of my top 5 favorite songs of all time in any genre period, and she breaks that down how like actually complicated his Glenn Danzig's voice is, how it's bluesy and metal and like it's just like a really it's like a kind of voice that, and she didn't know who it was. She's like, I don't know who this is, listening to it for the first time. You know, you always kind of take their word for it. This is the first time they're hearing this, and she was like going crazy for it. She's like, oh my god, it's like the way he holds this note, or the way he you know, his voice changes here, and I don't know that kind of shit, so it's cool to listen to. Also, I think people just like people like seeing other people enjoy things that they enjoy. Yes. So that's why we talk about, that's literally why we have Shed Selections, is because we like sharing movies with each other that we might not have seen, or with other people. It's one of my favorite things. It's why I love to watch and review movies, and then share them with friends and family and people. Now I'm one of those people who they ask for. Like I'll get, one of my friends is on paternity leave. He's like, yo, hit me up with like your top whatever movies. And I sent them to him like, these are what I think you should watch, knowing you and what you like. I actually heard my aunt told me a while ago that there's like a job, I don't know if it's a real job, but someone who will like recommend books to you based on what you're looking for in life, and not like guru books. I mean like novels, but like what are you going through in life? What kind of experience are you willing to have? It's kind of like a book curator, which I always thought would be a cool job.
Yeah. No, it's like those types of react things I think are cool. But like, it's just like the gimmicky ones where it's like Dave Rubin watching a clip from South Park making fun of trans people, and then it just ends with him going, "Yep, as usual, the guys from South Park are correct." And it's like,
correct.
Yes, they're making fun of the political correctness. Yes, you didn't react, you didn't contribute anything to that clip. There's no, or it's like, you know, Ben Shapiro watching, you know, Bill Burr rip on feminists, be like, "Yep, he's right." And it's like,
I also don't love when like, and I like him as a commentator a lot, is Jimmy Dore. Overall, I like his politics a lot. He's one of
the aggressive progressive.
He's like one of the few progressives, leftists I would say I actually still like. Overall.
Definitely.
But the way he does his show is a lot more like stop and start, which I don't like every single sentence, and sometimes it is just like pull up the crazy tweet and point at the tweet, and I don't really love that. I still follow him. I always follow him on Twitter. I mean, I follow his podcast more just because I want to support him, and my one follow helps. But I don't really listen anymore because I don't like that kind of, because it's just react. Like it's just sort of react and then some commentary, which sometimes we do the same thing, but that's like all the show is.
Yeah. But yeah, man. So you watched Civil War.
Yeah, I went to see
Captain America Civil War, that movie, the Marvel movie from 2016, I believe.
I actually have seen that one, which is funny because I have not seen a lot of Marvel movies. It was I like that. I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember liking it a lot.
That's all you need to know. It's like with Marvel.
Yeah. Again, when I talk about Marvel, it's not so much the ones I've seen overall are actually like really good. I don't care, and I don't like what they've done to. And there has been a natural saturation point that I think we hit like last year. I feel like, I don't know, like what even are the big Marvel movies coming out now?
Right now, the only one I think that they are like starting to like, step on the brakes with Marvel content. So like, there's only one movie coming out this year, and it's Deadpool.
Really?
Yeah.
One? Holy shit! Wait, which one is it?
Deadpool and Wolverine.
Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm gonna be honest. I did not love Deadpool. People were crazy about it. Did you like it?
Yeah, I thought the first one was good. The second was just all right, but
I haven't seen the second. The first I thought was very overrated. I like Ryan Reynolds a lot, but I just didn't like the comedy in it. I didn't think it was that funny. But and I've actually heard Logan is great.
Logan was great, yeah.
And for like, it's really good for people who aren't really into Marvel, like the quote unquote Marvel movies. Like it is more of a R-rated or something. I don't know.
It's more like an R-rated. It's almost more like a Western in some ways. It's more like a Clint Eastwood, like this guy who has a violent past and he's moved on from it, but he gets called in reluctantly to do one last heroic thing. Sort of, it's very sort of Sergio Leone type thing. But
okay. Yeah. So anyway, Civil War. I went to see it in theaters. I love the theater. I just only like going to see good movies at the theater because I would hate to see like a movie I rate like a 62 in the theater. It's a waste of money. And so I like to wait a little till, unless it's something like I'm dying to see. I want to, like, very few things I like have to see right away. I have to get right away. Like very few books. I was never like a wait in line for an iPhone type person. I won't wait in line for food unless I'm there are no other options. So, or unless it's like an incredible place that I don't go to like ever. But so Civil War, I was surprised. I think because we did talk about this when the map came out. In the first trailers, and I think I said this could be terrible, but it could. I wasn't like, oh, this sucks. This is gonna suck. Like, no, I said, but this has the capacity to be awful. But it could be great. Like it was a really, and I loved that. So it's A24's kind of first big budget movie. It's really, really cool. Do you just want me to kind of give my opinion on it? I haven't written a review yet. It is, so it's, how do I say this? So it's obviously an action movie. It's kind of like, I've heard it described as like a road trip from hell type movie. It's, so contextually, it starts with a shot of the president, who's played by Nick Offerman. And he's kind of like doing voice exercises in the mirror and stuff. And you kind of think, like, in the way that they did the trailers, which I really liked, you kind of think the government's the good guys. And he's like a Abraham Lincoln type, like keeping the Union together. And you find out, like, no, he's not good. Like they're the bad guys, more like, not more or less. There's probably issues all over, but the government are definitely enemies, and they drop hints at it where they say, basically the whole thing is shot from like an objective reporter's point of view, like photojournalist, I should say. It's very much a pro-journalism movie. Which is fine. I love good journalists, but so many are just awful. And I think that's the only way you could do it. I really am glad that they didn't do like, oh, it's the point of view of a soldier in the Western forces or in the government or in the Florida Alliance, or it's, the president's bodyguard or something. Like, I think that was the right way to go. It starts in New York City. It's a bunch of photojournalists and regular journalists, and one is saying what is he going to ask the president when he gives him an interview, because the whole thing is it's a rush to DC. Basically, you learn very early on, like, the war's basically over for the most part. the government's losing,
yeah,
and they're going to lose. The Western forces, and I want to get into that more because we did talk a lot about the map. The Western forces and the Florida Alliance, I think there's one more that they don't really mention much, are fighting the U.S. government, and they're nearing in on the Capitol, right? But the only way to get there for them, they're in New York City, which is having kind of riots and blackouts and energy issues, is to, like, you can't just go New York to DC. That wouldn't take very long. So they have to go like all the way up to Pittsburgh and kind of go back, and they're going through some hostile territory, and it's kind of Mad Maxy in some points. You know, there are a lot of like bodies hanging from like the highways and stuff, and just kind of guys with guns protecting areas, and money is like not really an object. Like there's what she tries to buy a sandwich at one point, and she's like $300, or no, she tries to buy gas, it's like $300, and they're like, that couldn't get you a sandwich. And it's like $300 Canadian, and they're like, okay, that's different. So this is kind of, and I like that because it's giving you clues of where are we in this world. Everyone has guns. There's random kind of firefights that break out that are very cool. There's one point where the snipers are sniping another sniper. So there's like a sniper off, and he asked the question. One of the journalists asked the question, like, who are you with? Who are you fighting? And they're like, dude, they're shooting us, so we're shooting them. Like that. Like that's where we're at right now. There's definitely a nod to, which I think was cool, like the Boogaloo Boys. Do you know who they are?
No.
The Boogaloo Boys they were big a lot during like the 2020 protests. I guess they would be considered far right, but also not. They're all armed. They're very much like their whole shtick is that they wear Hawaiian shirts. So if you ever saw like the militia guys in Hawaiian shirts, that's like their thing. It's all about kind of like the end of the world, and there's going to be a war. But then there was that thing where the Boogaloo Boy, they also had like a gay pride thing, and I think they're like ultra libertarian, like ANCAPs maybe.
Okay.
There's kind of a nod to them where there's like a firefight where the guys, like the average viewer might not see that, but it's like guys in bulletproof vests and Kevlar vests and AR-15s, but they're wearing Hawaiian shirts. Like that was obviously intentional to be like, okay, so these militias like actually have fighting power. Like they overtake a government building at one point and like win a fight. And it's very, so basically they're nearing it on the Capitol. They want to talk to the president. Like you learn early on that the government's going to lose. The president has drone-stricken Americans. He's on his third term. So like they're dropping these hints that he's an authoritarian. And when you learn this stuff, because when the map first came out, we were like, when would Texas and California ever team up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
When would they ever do that? But it actually makes more sense when you watch this movie, because this is my interpretation. This was not told. This was not said at all. But California and Texas are the biggest states in the country. They're freaking, they basically are countries, especially California is like the size of Italy, the gigantic population. So Texas and California being like, look, they don't say where the drone strikes were. We know this guy is evil. We know the government's evil. We have a lot of people. We have a lot of guns. We have a lot of technology. Like it does actually make sense that Texas and California would team up to, whether it's, the enemy of my enemy is my friend type thing, or it's more practical. Like we're just big and we have a lot of resources and we have a lot of people. So let's use that to fight the government. But when that goes, and I say that because the movie, the story does a good job. It doesn't get into politics. You don't know what party the president is. You don't know if he's if he's a Republican, if he's a Democrat. You don't know who got bombed. Like you don't know any of that stuff. And I think that was the right move. Like you, so it's not like, so when people are like, oh, if it's a Republican, then California and then Texas would have never seceded. Or if it's a Democrat, California would never do. But like, no, I think it's beyond all of that. And it was just the government's evil. They're killing people. He's not resigning, or he's not stepping down. And let's team up to fight them. The Florida Alliance, of course, that's like all these deep South states in Florida. And I could see how, like, even though Florida, Texas, California are all very different states, to team up together like that does make sense.
Yeah.
So it definitely is a cool movie to see in theaters because there's a lot of gunfights,
cool,
a lot of explosions. It's like fun action. It's urban warfare.
Cool.
It's a lot of you know, I mean, they show it in a lot of the trailers and in some of the movie poster art where it's like snipers in the Statue of Liberty. Like, I don't think they actually showed that, but that was like a movie poster. It's you know, they're shooting RPGs at the Lincoln Memorial because basically oh, and by the way, I'm like totally spoiling the movie for people, so you might want to stop and fast forward here. But basically, the government forces are dwindling. Most of them have given up or surrendered, and then it's like some holdouts, Secret Service. So the Western forces just have to like overtake DC. So there's like fighting in the streets, and it's honestly just which is kind of morbid, but there's honestly just a mad dash to like who's going to shoot the president. It reminded me of like who's going to kill Bin Laden. Like it was very much, and then the photographer, like who's going to get that famous picture of. They do a good job with like I think race stuff. They do a good job. For instance, the president's obviously a white man, like we know it's Nick Offerman. But like the press secretary is a black woman. The one of the soldiers is, and in this world, of course, women are in combat. That's not a thing that we have now, I don't believe, but it is here, at least with the Western forces. And you know, it's multiracial. There's never any talk about political shit. It's really just the only political thing I would say is so let's talk about the Jesse Plemons scene because he's in one scene. He's incredible. He like just is an incredible actor. I believe he's a government soldier, but they don't even really say because there are parts where like you don't even know who's who.
Right. And
he's definitely doing like a racial thing where when he asks like, what kind of American are you? He's like South American, Central American, are you? And he shoots a guy who is Chinese who meets up with them, who's like from Hong Kong. It does seem like he's racially motivated. His partner there is also a white guy, I believe. So anyway, that might be like the one thing where it's like, well, I mean, we're not going to ignore this stuff completely. But again, you don't know whose side he's on really, because this is like the final days of Rome where it's just like, people just start killing each other. People make new alliances. That scene was great. Some unrealistic things. And so the photographers are like very much in the mix, like in the fight that I've listened to podcasts about that from, you know, people who are in the military who are like, that would never happen. Like the photographers were never like be in line with us as we're like going down the walls and the hallways and shit. And we're like pulling them in with us. Like that just wouldn't happen ever. But the way that it's shot objectively through the people who are even, you know, the photographers are Kirsten Dunst, a Latino guy, how I think he's the actor from Better Call Saul. I'm not sure about that. A young girl, and then an older black actor who I really like, who's in a lot of stuff. I always forget his name. I know he's in Fences, but they're you know, they don't talk politics. They're not really. It's more of just, this is a matter of fact. The government's going to fall. I want to ask the president these questions. I want to take the picture. That's what, you know, after he's killed. The young girl's like, you know, you're my hero to Kirsten Dunst, and she wants to like follow in your footsteps. So that's, you know, it's a really, I wish there was a little more context for why this is going on.
Right.
But that's because it was so well done. But what I think they did a really good job about is setting up a prequel. I could definitely see them having a prequel for this and there being a market for it.
Right.
And I think that's really smart if they did that intentionally.
Yeah.
If they did that intentionally, that's really, really smart, because I would definitely go see a prequel to this movie. To see like, okay, where did the president drone strike? What, like, even if it got more political, what party is he for? Why did he not step down? Why did the Florida Alliance even get formed? Why did California and Texas decide to form an alliance? Like, I just think that would be really, really cool. So
I was thinking, like, when we rate films, so you know, like you know, Siskel and Ebert, they had like, you know, 2 thumbs up or whatever. Since we're very reckless, like it seems like the appropriate finger would be middle fingers, but it also seems like, you know, that would be disrespectful to the movie. Where I give it 10 middle fingers out of 10 middle fingers. So, what do you think is a good?
Well, I already do my own rating system for my
I don't care.
blog. So
I don't care, Benjamin.
well, let's stick to that. Let's stick to well, what would you rate it out of 100? I mean, that's what I
100
do.
watts though.
100 watts, 100 fingers in your ass, Joe.
In that case, yeah, I would give this film I haven't seen. Yeah, probably.
You keep giving them all 100 out of 100.
Yeah. Well, it's just something to think about. I'm just brainstorming out loud. What's a good reckless finger that we can use?
I don't know.
Or reckless part of the body that we can use to tabulate our scores for films. Something that says like we're sophisticated enough to like count things, but we're also reckless enough to use something that's rebellious. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got me on that one.
Yeah, no, like I said, that's we can.
Well, out of 100, I'm probably giving this high 80s, like 80. I think like probably an 89, 88, 89.
Plus, that was the year I was born, so that's
89.
Yeah, I get that. I'll back you on that one, dude.
You do that one. All right.
Year.
Yeah.
There's a website where you can type in like your date of birth, and it'll tell you what song was most popular on the Billboard charts.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but I got a stupid one. It was some I don't remember the song, but it was a song by Paula Abdul. It was like some cheesy ass song.
Do you put your date in?
Yeah.
Let's see. Number one song, birthday jams. Oh no.
What'd you get?
I'm Step by Step by New Kids on the Block. Oh man,
sucks to be you, dude.
I don't even know though. New Kids on the Block, number one song. Holy shit! All right, check it out. Maybe it rocks.
That's even worse than finding out that your ancestors were slave owners, dude. Like that's way worse.
Yeah, it's up there. I do like always knowing like who won the like sports championships the year you were born, who won like the Pulitzer, like that kind of stuff. I know mine. I think it was the Pulitzer. It was something about Mambo Kings. I don't know.
Yeah,
Mambo Kings sing of something. I know the Giants won that Super Bowl in '90. I think the Reds won the World Series.
Well,
can't remember. I can't remember the others.
Great content.
I think the Flames. I think the Calgary Flames. No, that was your birthday, 89. I think it was the Calgary Flames.
No.
I'll find out. Yeah, I don't know. Birthday content.
Yeah.
Birthday, even though it's neither of our birthdays. All right. So anyway, Civil War, sweet, very, very cool. Well done, A24. If they're gonna make big budget movies like that, I'm all for it because that was great experience.
Did it feel like an A24 movie? Did it feel because like even though they don't exactly have like a specific house style, because they do have like an eclectic bunch of filmmakers. Did it at least feel like something where it's like, I cannot see Universal or Paramount making this. This feels a little bit more, a little more fringe, a little more kind of just outside the mainstream.
I don't think so. No. Like, because I do think A24. Because remember, A24 doesn't always. They don't make all of their movies. A lot of them are
just distributed by them.
Distributed, yeah. But maybe they do distribute movies that fit their mold or whatever. But no, I wouldn't say it had an A24 feel. But that's okay. It was a great quality movie. It was very 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 good. Definitely see it.
All right. So speaking of politics, so this is something, an interesting story that, and I would like to do more of this type of stuff where it's like we pick a particular era from like in arts and culture and to kind of look back and critique it and make fun of it or just kind of comment on it. So this was an interesting one. So this was about how, and this is from The Independent, how modern art was a CIA weapon. Which is interesting. So modern arts, specifically sort of like late 40s, 1950s, that's when you saw the rise of like sort of abstract expressionism. And so you would think like, well, that's weird. Like what did the CIA have to do with that? Especially during the like McCarthy era, so, and during a time when a lot of intellectuals and artists were either, communist or they had communist leanings or communist connections. Why would the CIA be funding them? And the short answer is, because it was during the Cold War, Russia was using propaganda to paint the U.S. as like this, culturally bereft place where it's like it's very rigid, but Russia is a place where and then the U.S. was like, no, we actually have to like fund these fucking weirdos to make us look like that we support freedom of expression. So it's actually pretty interesting. So anyway, so I'll just go through a couple excerpts here, and then Ben, just kind of chime in with your thoughts. For decades in art circles, it was either a rumor or a joke, but now it is confirmed as a fact. The Central Intelligence Agency used American modern art, including the works of such artists as Jackson Pollock, Robert Motherwell, William de Kooning, and Mark Rothko, as a weapon in the Cold War. In the manner of a Renaissance prince, except that it acted secretly, the CIA fostered and promoted American Abstract Expressionist painting around the world for more than 20 years. The connection is improbable. This was a period in the 1950s and 1960s when the great majority of Americans disliked or even despised modern art. President Truman summed up the popular view when he said, "If that's art, then I'm a Hottentot." So do you know what a Hottentot is?
No.
I think it's kind of a slur. It refers to South African indigenous people or something. I guess basically he was saying, it's like, hey, if that's modern art, then I'm a black guy, an African.
All right, yeah.
And some kind of
it's probably like, hey, if that's art, then I'm a Hottentot.
Exactly, yeah. As for the artists themselves, many were ex-communists, barely acceptable in the America of the McCarthyite era, and certainly not the sort of people normally likely to receive U.S. government backing. Why did the CIA support them? Because in the propaganda war with the Soviet Union, this new artistic movement could be held up as proof of the creativity, the intellectual freedom, and the cultural power of the U.S. Russian art, strapped into the communist ideological straitjacket, could not compete. So this is interesting. So this is like
CIA patron of the arts.
Yeah. And it's like, this is like, if anything, I feel like this kind of dwarfs our culture war, because it seems like the culture war that we're going through right now is, it's like a comedian making a joke or somebody writing a novel, and then it becomes a huge flashpoint it gets dragged into politics. But this is kind of taking the opposite approach. It's like, how can we use politics? How can we, through political means, use art to fight a Cold War with another country? Like, that's pretty.
Yeah, it's one aspect to it, definitely. And when I first heard, this topic, like the CIA funding, I thought it was more of like how the CIA funded left-wing movements, how they funded drug channeling in certain cities, to kind of keep control of it and to discredit populations they didn't like.
Right.
So
or use as an excuse to boost funding for that thing, right?
Sure. Yes. Yeah. That too. Yeah. Like the FBI does it too. If they'll,
or like a false flag type of thing or something.
Yeah. Or they'll create the extremists and then go arrest them and be like, look at all the extremists we're arresting, so we have to get more funding. They do that. I mean, look at like the Michigan kidnapping story of the governor, where like 75% of those guys were informants, that's why they were found not guilty and there were hung juries, because it's like, you guys just created this. The government just created this whole problem, and then you went and arrested some of these losers who were going to kidnap the governor. So I didn't realize it was actually, it was, I mean, this is CIA we're talking about here, but it was like more commendable what they were doing. Like, they were actually using, I mean, like I said, I joked about it, but they were being patrons of the arts. Now were the artists, like, did they know that the CIA was funding them?
No. Basically, like, they were creating the like, they were trying to leave create like a long paper trail to make it hard to find, like, just like these sort of dummy organizations to funnel money towards groups and galleries that were supporting modern art. So like, yeah, it wasn't sort of like they went up to Rothko and were like, hey, here's $10,000 for a show or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so it was through like fake organizations or whatever, different sort of grants and shit like that. Okay, well that's actually pretty cool. I mean, CIA is evil, but that's pretty cool. And
here I can give a more detailed description of that. To pursue its underground interest in America's lefty avant-garde, the CIA had to be sure its patronage could not be discovered. Matters of this sort could only have been done at 2 or 3 removes, Mr. Jameson explained, so that there wouldn't be any question of having to clear Jackson Pollock, for example, or do anything that would involve these people in the organization. And it couldn't have been any closer, because most of them were people who had very little respect for the government in particular, and certainly none for the CIA. If you had to use people who considered themselves one way or another to be closer to Moscow than to Washington, well, so much the better, perhaps. This was the Long Leash, so it was nicknamed the Long Leash Program. The centerpiece of the CIA campaign became the Congress for Cultural Freedom, a vast jamboree of intellectuals, writers, historians, poets, and artists, which was set up with CIA funds in 1950 and run by a CIA agent. It was the beachhead from which culture could be defended against the attacks of Moscow and its fellow travelers in the West. At its height, it had offices in 35 countries and published more than 24 magazines, including Encounter. The organization put together several exhibitions of abstract expression during the 50s.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. Because abstract expressionism was so expensive to move around and exhibit, millionaires and museums were called into play. Preeminent among these was Nelson Rockefeller, whose mother had co-founded the Museum of Modern Art in New York. As president of what he called Mummy's Museum, Rockefeller was one of the biggest backers of abstract expressionism, which he called free enterprise painting. His museum was contracted to the Congress for Cultural Freedom to organize and curate most of its important art shows. The museum was also linked to the CIA by several other bridges. William Paley, the president of CBS Broadcasting and a founding father of the CIA, sat on the members' board of the museum's international program. John Hay Whitney, who had served in the agency's wartime predecessor, the OSS, was its chairman. And Tom Braden, the first chief of the CIA's international organization, was executive secretary of the museum. So yeah, it was just getting all these heads of culture together, I guess, to that's interesting. Like, it's so
it's funny because it's like the patrons of this like hippy dippy lefty art, abstract expressionism were like the CIA and the Rockefellers. Like these Republican billionaires, one of the wealthiest families in human existence.
Yeah, ultra conservative, like
yeah, like they're the patrons of the arts. And meanwhile, you have these fucking losers at Columbia, like protesting this shit. It's like I mean, and to bring up, I mean that's not connected here, but it's just funny that these are the kind of people who would like, very much support this sort of art and as a form of protest. And I was like, you guys are definitely being funded by shadow groups. I have no doubt in my mind that Soros is funding what's going on around the country. I'm not saying that none of it's organic. Definitely a lot of it is organic, but same thing that happened in 2020. And I don't know if it's the CIA too, sowing discord again, forming your, kind of solidifying your own importance. The CIA is not the FBI. I understand that, but I think that this shit goes on in all different facets of our society, and it's really disturbing. Yeah. That being said, we have a Patreon, CIA. If you'd like to, if the CIA wants to fund this podcast, I'm okay with it. Yeah. I do not have, I do not have the scruples to resist that.
Yeah.
CIA funding. We'll be a mouthpiece for the CIA. I'm not above that.
Yeah. But yeah, it just it kind of boggles my mind a bit, because it's like, in order to combat this kind of radical communist thing that's spreading around the world, we have to help the radical communist lefties in our own country to like it's kind of like, on the one hand, it is very devious, but on the other hand, it is sort of like they were supporting the arts. So it's like,
was Rothko and Jackson Pollock and these guys, were they like commies? I don't know their politics.
I don't know their exact politics. I wouldn't be surprised if they at least had communist leanings or connections.
I also think back then, I'm not defending commies here. I'm really not. But I think a lot of the time back then, it was like the options weren't great.
Yeah.
You had a lot of extremes. kind of like liberal democracy still wasn't that common around the world.
Right.
And even in places where it was, a lot of time, like here, it's corrupt. It's also violent and terrible. And it's like around the world, you have a lot of like fascist dictators, military juntas.
Yeah.
You had monarchy still and despots and these things. It's like I get the appeal of communism.
Sure.
In some of those places, like I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not. Of course, it always turns into the same fucking thing. It overtakes, right?
Yeah.
There's not been a peaceful communist regime like when people say like no, Scandinavia is not communist, and when it was,
right.
it was like when it was its most far left, it was not good. Like
right.
Sweden, Sweden did not become the Sweden we know today. Back like it was like a poor place back in the 70s before they really liberalized and
the economy collapsed in the early 80s, so they became more capitalist. But
Sweden did.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
And so there is kind of like a misconception about Sweden. From what I understand, we're just like they have a lot of social safety nets, but economically they're more free market oriented. So it's
it's crazy. Sweden, it's like easier to open a business. Yeah. It's like low business tax. Again, don't quote me on this shit, but this is what I've heard. Like it does sound like, and that is to his credit. That is why places like Bernie Sanders, he wouldn't say like we should be Venezuela. He would say like we should be like Sweden, stuff like that. And because it does seem like a better mix. Of course, it has its problems.
Yeah.
But it does seem like I agree with it. I think we should have safety nets. I think things like healthcare and that should be what's more ascribed to the left. But I have heard it's actually like there are billionaires in Sweden. Not that should be the metric. It's easy to open a business. It's easy. There aren't the taxes. Again, I don't know all of that for certain, but it's not communist.
Right.
And places that are or were communist, like they were always shitty. Yeah. But I get why if for 40 years you had some inbred family running your country that was, or like maybe 400 years or whatever, that was the tippy top 1%. Let's take like Russia, for instance. I think Tsar Nicholas II was one of the richest people in human history also. It's like Mansa Musa, Tsar Nicholas II, the Rockefellers, Carnegie. Like I get it. I get why they, and like you have this ideology that superficially sounds good.
Yeah.
And
it also seems like it's just human nature. Like when you do have a government that's going in an extreme and terrible direction, it rarely ever seems like we need a revolution, but we need a moderate revolution. It just seems like, no, we need the exact opposite. So I understand it. Like you said, I see where you come. That doesn't really work, but I understand. Like the people need to own this government, and it's like okay, but that's.
And there's obviously less excuse for it now because we've seen it just fail over and over again. And of course, they'll always say, well, there's not doing it right. Well, if something can't be done right, like after the 100th time, 10,000th time or whatever, like then maybe it's just a flawed system. Yeah. But like I get back then, I get the idea of it. So when people are like, oh, they're communists, like I think that'd just be now like saying, oh, they're like left. They're like on the left.
Right.
Like, because we didn't have, like, even in our country, in the US, like the parties were actually even more like we're very similar in a lot of ways. There was no really left-wing party in the United States. It wasn't the Communist Party and then the Socialist Party. And the Democrats have become more left, a lot more left, especially some parts of them. But like, so that's all I'm saying is that I think calling someone a communist today is different, where they're just like a fucking idiot. Where then back then it's like, oh, they're just it's like don't want dictators with death squads killing people. So they're gonna, in Nicaragua, whatever, they're gonna like be communist because the communists have the guns. And of course, like, it's hard to be like a centrist being like, we need a centrist revolution. Like it doesn't really rally. It doesn't really it doesn't really get people motivated. Even if that would be the best option. Like, hey guys, let's like tone it down here. Let's, change something
in the middle.
But I get it. And sometimes you do need exchange. I mean, dude, look at El Salvador. Like, apparently, I don't know if it's propaganda. I need to look into it more. Bukele seems kind of awesome. Like, he might be a dictator, a military dictator, but he's cleaned that place up, apparently. And I'm sorry, I don't really give a shit about the rights of like death squad gang members. It's also not my country. Like, I don't care. Like, to me, are the regular people safe there? Like, it was a terrible, terrible place.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Bukele, I think he's going to be talking at CPAC, which is wild.
Yeah.
That the president of El Salvador is going to be talking at CPAC.
Yeah.
Or he already did or something. I forget. Right. But I don't know, man. I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to go too far in some ways, and there might be a backlash. But that place needed a Bukele, so I kind of get it.
Yeah. There's a little more info here on how the CIA was funding this stuff. In 1958, the touring exhibition, The New American Painting, included works by Pollock, de Kooning, Motherwell, and others. It was on show in Paris. The Tate Gallery was keen to have it next, but could not afford to bring it over. Late in the day, an American millionaire and art lover, Julius Fleischmann, stepped in with the cash, and the show was brought to London. The money that Fleischmann provided, however, was not his, but the CIA's. It came through a body called the Farfield Foundation, of which Fleischmann was president, but far from being a millionaire's charitable arm, the foundation was a secret conduit for CIA funds.
Dude, that's what I want to be. If I could be anything in life, I want to be a art aficionado billionaire funded by the CIA. That's to put on exhibitions at the Tate Modern in London or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like that's what I want in life, and then just have like the most deviant, shadowy organization on planet Earth.
Yeah.
To be like facilitating my like hobby.
Yeah.
That would be so badass.
Yeah, it was like on the one hand, like I got all this fuck you money, I can do whatever I want. But on the other hand, I'm also kind of a government stooge. It's like
It's like I guess the CIA is. I don't know, man. I don't even know if I consider the CIA the government. Because it's so like it is obviously the government, but it's also like not. Like, first of all, they're not elected, which of course a lot of the government's not elected, but they're not elected. They're like unknown in a lot of ways. They're like they control the government. Like, you wonder why people who are saying we're not going to fund Ukraine, all of a sudden vote to fund Ukraine out of nowhere. Like, because they say we're going to put child porn on your computer and then we're going to car bomb you or something. Like, I don't know if they're that. Like, they're gonna fuck with your life if you don't vote this way. And I mean, this is like the deep state, and the CIA is as front facing of a deep state as you can get. Right. And so I don't know if I even really consider them the government. They like, I don't even know what to say. Like, they control the government, which is insane.
Yeah. There's some more interesting stuff here. Would abstract expressionism have been the dominant art movement of the post-war years without this patronage? The answer is probably yes. Equally, it would be wrong to suggest that when you look at an abstract expressionist painting, you were being duped by the CIA. But look where this art ended up: in the marble halls of banks, in airports, in city halls, boardrooms, and great galleries. For the Cold Warriors who promoted them, these paintings were a logo, a signature for their culture and system, which wanted to display everywhere that counted. They succeeded. So that's interesting. That's
very interesting.
No.
So Judson might not love this.
Yeah.
Might not love where this is going. But I'm not the biggest fan of abstract art, and that's kind of putting it mildly.
I'm definitely not a big fan of the 1950s stuff where it's just kind of splatters.
I really dislike Jackson Pollock. I'm going to be honest.
Me too.
I like Rothko more. I know Judson. I think I asked him if that's who's his favorite. I think he said Rothko. And I do have a abstract piece right over there that is also by Judson, which I probably would not put up any other abstract art in my house. So that's a compliment to Judson. But I really dislike a Jackson Pollock. And while a lot of times you kind of roll your eyes at people who are like, oh, my kid could make that, right? But like, I think they have a point.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah. I don't like a fair amount of art in
period.
Yeah, exactly. No, in the
you fascist.
A quick aside, I was talking to somebody I used to work with who was actually a very talented painter. And he was asking me, and you know, I like there are a handful of painters who I like, but I'm not an expert on art. And so he asked me, goes, hey, do you follow like art and painting much? I was like, yeah, you know, there are a few that I like, but you know, I'm not super knowledgeable, but yeah, I definitely have a huge appreciation and respect for it. And he goes, yeah, everybody says that. Like, is there anybody out there who says like, yeah, I don't respect art, or I don't respect painters? I'm like, I guess not. I'm sure there's some like inbred hillbilly who's like, I don't got time for painting.
Yeah, it's like blank walls.
Yeah, yeah.
Where the good Lord intended.
Yeah, but I see where he's coming from, because I've met people who ask me, oh, like you're a musician, how long have you been playing this and that, and I'll be like, hey, are you a musician? They're like, no, but I respect musicians. It's like, yeah, everyone, you know, that is kind of
like, it's like, do you like music? It's like, do I like music? Who doesn't like music? Like,
yeah.
It's, I mean, we've been making music and making art since we were cave dwellers. You know, it's just part of, I think, our
it's part of who we are.
Like the formation of our brains. Like, I think it's just to appreciate nice things.
You know, our hearts beat to a rhythm. So I mean, you know, it's kind of intrinsic to who we are. But anyway, it's
oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you were making a joke there. I was like, oh, I got it.
No. But yeah, it's so anyway, getting back to abstract, it's like, at least at first, at least like the artists of that, you know, like the vanguard of that movement, you know, a good chunk of their work I don't really care much for. But on the other hand, I do have a certain amount of like respect for artists who are like, I'm just gonna just blow up all the rules of art and just go and take it in a completely different direction. I don't, when it's done for its own sake, I don't particularly have much interest in that. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but sometimes you need someone to just kind of like say, fuck tradition, this is where art should go. And sometimes, you know, that will pave the way for something better to come along.
And yes, and it's a gamble.
Yeah,
a lot of modern art today fucking sucks.
Yes,
it sucks so bad. And I'm not just saying that because it's like a lot of it's like DEI shit, like, you know, POC, you know, unveil something. Like, no, it sucks. If it was good, I would be the biggest supporter of it. But it's garbage. It's like, you know, that like that arms thing for MLK. That
from a certain angle looks like big wiener. Yeah.
I thought it looks like long turds, like forming in a cyclone of turds or something. And then there's like some girl with weird Medusa hair thing, and it's fucking terrible. Yeah, like it's so shitty. Remember, there's like the gold. We did an episode on like the gold cube in Central Park or something. I never knew what happened to that. But a lot of it's just trash. Like it's just absolute trash. A lot of architecture too. It's just trash, and there's no need for it. Like there can be great, simple. Like not everything has to be Gothic or Baroque. Like I actually don't even like the Baroque styles that much. I think they're too much. Not everything has to be like Romance or Gothic or, you know, mid-century modern or whatever. It's like it can just be good. It just be good quality thing, and a lot of it's just absolute trash, and I don't get it. It almost like it feels like the government's messing with me now.
Yeah,
like garbage art out there that's just used to mess with us.
So, and I've heard this from multiple disparate sources in and around the LA arts scene. So which makes me think that there's probably a fair amount of truth to this, that a lot.
I don't think I would last very long in the LA art scene, just saying. I don't think I would make many friends.
I mean, I've opined, you know, I've shared my stories of going like, you know, on this podcast of going to you know, shitty art shows. And where it's like probably about 80 to 90% of the art is garbage. Once in a while, like I'll see an artist, oh, that's actually really cool. Yeah, and even if I don't like it, I could be like, you know, they put thought into this, or there's a lot of intricate details, or there's something where it's like, okay, like they actually studied their craft. They did something interesting. But I was talking to a friend about it a while back, and then because multiple people have told me, yeah, the modern art scene is just money laundering for rich people. And so like, but I've heard that from multiple different people, but I've never really gotten anything, like any details on it. And then this is just like kind of a meme, but like it's probably like a pretty accurate way. And I sent it to my friend. I was like, yeah, I remember that conversation we had. I think this is probably how it's done. So millionaire makes $20 million. Millionaire hires artist to make art for $25,000. The artist puts one streak on a canvas. The millionaire thanks artist and has art appraised by an appraiser in his same circle of friends. The appraiser values the artwork at $20 million. The millionaire donates $20 million artwork to museum to get $20 million tax write-off. Millionaire pays no taxes for the year. Me at a museum. This is stupid. It's just a line on a canvas. My hipster friend next to me. No, you just don't understand because you're uncultured.
That
seems like a pretty
it's
a meme, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of like
yeah. So that makes me so angry. So it's definitely what happens.
Yeah, and it's funny because like my the same friend I was sharing this with. He's from the Bay Area and he was visiting me in LA, and so I was kind of sharing with him about how so many of these art galleries just put out trash. And I said, yeah, at the very least, though, like most, if not all, of these art galleries, have free admission. And then he goes, so how do they stay open then? I'm like, there's your answer. Like that's that's how these generous donations from rich people. So,
which I'm all for, actually. Like, to be honest, the money that would the rich people would be taxed probably goes to some other bullshit that wouldn't work anyway. Like California has super high taxes on rich people. There's a lot of fucking problems in California. Like, I'm sorry. Same with New York. Same with all these blue states. Same with New Jersey. Like, so I'm not saying that money would get to better use if it goes to a museum that then can also be free. Like, I'm actually all for it. That might be the best use of tax money. Yeah. And there are a lot of other. I'd rather have, as fucked up as that is, I'd rather have a billionaire help like a local museum in San Jose than they like don't pay their taxes by keeping it offshore or something like that.
That's true.
Yeah, like a lot of
they might make a mistake and then accidentally like promote an artist who's with talent. Maybe that'll happen.
Just an externality of their greed.
Exactly.
I wanted so my second dream would be to become an externality of like a Peter Thiel.
Oh man. Well, it's interesting because I mean, like, this is a practice that's been around for centuries. I think it was Emperor Joseph II or something. Anyway, he was Emperor of Austria back during like Mozart's time, so like mid to late 700s.
Fuck you money, those guys.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Like, he was known for being pretty liberal in the sense where he was like, like, I don't know if he I don't know all the like the exact financials of it, but he was like sponsoring or like donating money for like opera houses to be built and stuff. Sure. And but back then people had taste, so it was like, oh, this is like this up and coming composer. Like, I'm going to commission him to compose an opera for us. Let's create a museum to preserve these great works of art. But now it's just
that's one of my things. It's actually, I'm glad you brought that up because this topic, I forgot how I got on this before or where I heard this, but it's so true that like back in the day, and not even like, I'm not even talking like the Austrian Empire. I mean, like, and the Medicis are, I think, the best example of this. Like, the Medicis built some of the most beautiful cities in Rome, in Italy, with artistic endeavors in mind, to make it functional and beautiful, and like, even in this city, like we just said, Rockefeller, like we were joking about, but it's true. The difference about rich people back then and rich people now is rich people back then took pride in their cities. Yes. Chicago is called the Windy City, not because it's literally windy. It's because of the bloviating, the bloviating words of the founding fathers of that city who wanted to make it the new Rome, like the Midwest New York City. They wanted it to be. That's why I actually love Chicago, because you go there and it is like, this is America. It's big, beautiful buildings. It's, there's pride in it. It's not all this bullshit everywhere. Yeah. And I think that's really cool. And that's what they wanted it to be. Like the Rockefellers, they could have, I don't know, built anything. They could have done fucking anything with their money, but they built museums. They wanted, like Teddy Roosevelt also, he comes from a very wealthy family. Like, he preserved they took pride in there, like Teddy Roosevelt, the Museum of Natural History, and they took him down because they're fucking idiots there. But like, they took pride in their country and their culture and their cities. It almost was like it was kind of like pure capitalism in the sense of like competing New York with Chicago with LA. Like, we want to be the best. Now rich people, it's just like extract as much money as possible out of some widget or some service, financialize everything, and sell the bones. Like, it's bullshit and it sucks. So I have more respect for the emperors and the kings and the barons of, now of course they committed horrible atrocities too, right. There's a lot of death and misery, yada yada yada,
but they had a good eye. They had a good eye for art.
I mean, the pyramids are still there. That's true. Like, people go see the pyramids. So if you're gonna at least ruin poor people's lives and throw death and misery and slavery at stuff, at least make it pretty.
Yeah.
Like at least make it cool. And that is the history of America. We're getting away from our roots. And I miss it and I love it. And I wish more rich people wouldn't like just hoard shit and wouldn't like just fund bullshit, and they would actually like create things to last and to you know, build museums. And I'm sure maybe they do. Like I don't know, maybe I'm talking my ass here, but like the Habsburgs or whoever, the King Joseph, whatever he was, and the Medicis and these nobles and these rich people. Now we would call them oligarchs. Like there was a more like I feel like honestly more humanity to them.
Yes.
Than the same exact class of people. Again, with relativity, but the same class of that gentry, of that stratum that exists today. I feel like they at least gave us things that we still go and see in the Louvre. We still go and see in Chicago. We still see these gorgeous buildings, and we still go see the plazas in Florence. And Central Europe and all that. Like I've been to Vienna, dude. I've never been to a city that was so like, it was the most imperial city I've ever been to, where it's like, this is a powerful place. We have big, beautiful boulevards and parks and statues of guys on horses. And while I didn't love it as a city, it's one of those cities where I'm like, I'm glad I went. I never need to go back. Like I recommend going, but it was a very like, we are powerful. Like we are proud of this place,
right? And
this is our might. And I think there needs to be more of that.
Yeah, I agree. Where there's, and you know, I think we've talked about this before, but it's like, you know, when you have a place that has like a clear identity and like wants to celebrate it, and even, you know, even if I don't care for that style, at least I can be like, okay, but it has a definitive, clear style. Like I can appreciate that.
Totally. Why do you think I love the French so much? The French love their culture. They love their stuff. Like not everywhere. So many other cities, especially in this country, it's the same shit. Ever like this guy JJ McCall. I think I brought him up last episode too, maybe. But he does like this. He did this whole episode on his channel about like your city's not that special. Like every city thinks they have terrible traffic. Every city thinks they have like this special thing or these like no, like 90% of cities have this stuff. And I think that kind of stinks because I did like the distinctiveness of cities and countries is why people want to go them. And honestly, we get criticized a lot for this, for like importing our bullshit to all these other countries. Well, it's always nice to see like, the comforts of something in another country. It's like, yeah, but you're traveling there. You don't want, I mean, that's why I'm such a nationalist over like a globalist. And that doesn't mean nationalist isn't like you should look at yourself as better than everyone else. Of course, your values and what you have might be better in some ways and might not be in others, but it's preserving like what makes every place special, whether that's Japan or Germany or the US or Brazil or whatever it is. And I hope we don't lose that with these fucking globalists.
Well, you know what they say, man. When in Rome, fuck it, you know?
That's right. They do say that over there.
There's
the French preserve their culture, and I will always appreciate that.
Yeah. They don't have to be fucking snobs about it, you know. There was
they made France. It's great.
What's his face? Who's that actor who was in Inglourious Bastards? And he was also the German, the Hans Landa guy.
Yeah, Hans Landa. That was
he was in Django.
Of course. Christoph Waltz.
Yeah, he was talking. So he speaks like 4 or 5 languages, and so he was talking about how different countries react when you mess up their language. And he said in France, if you're a tourist and you're fumbling with French, like he goes, they don't even tell you that you messed up. They just he goes, we're in Italy. They love tours. They love people who try, but they fuck up a little bit. But they're like, it's okay, whatever. They laugh and they welcome you. But it's like in France, if you fuck up the link,
well, yes, that's probably true. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, the French can be totally snobby about shit. But my experience has been in France that I actually saw a map of this recently, which is funny. It's like how every country reacts when you try to speak their language. And in France, it's not like in other countries, you get what's it called? Like the bumpers put up like in a bowling alley, or you get, some leeway. But in France, it's like, oh, thank you for trying, but stop. Like, stop doing that. And I will speak English because you're not doing it right. Where other countries like Spain and Italy, they'll be like, oh fuck yeah, like keep going, you're doing great. Like, and they appreciate it a lot more. I knew a guy who worked when I worked in Spain, but he worked in Spain, but in the Basque country, so all the way in the north, where they speak Spanish, but they also have a language called Basque, and it's not connected. It's called a language isolate. It's not connected to even any Indo-European language, let alone a Romance language. And he said there that his students, when he would speak some Basque, they would literally clap for him because that's how hard of a language it is to learn. And it's like it's not just like Spanish to Catalan or something. Where it's a totally different language. But anyway, but Fred, my experience was no one scolded me. And other like. And I actually listened to Thomas Chardon Williams talk about this, who lives in France. He from New Jersey. And he was saying, like, even 10, 15 years ago, they would like fuck with you almost. They'd be like, oh, sorry, I don't understand what you're saying, even though you're speaking like it's 80% good French. But now, and he said like that has totally changed, where we don't want you to waste our time speaking French not perfectly, but we'll just switch to English. Like, we're doing you a favor. So that's what it is more. So and Christoph Waltz's experience might be totally true also. But I was in France a year and a half ago. I would use some French. 90% of people would just switch to English. They'd be like, oh, okay, like, we know you don't speak, you're not native speaker, so switch. We speak. One restaurant I went to, I actually had to use French, and I did enough to like communicate and get the check and everything. But that was like the one. But they weren't like, oh, this fucking American not speaking French. They were just like working with me because they didn't speak English. Right. So anyway,
real quick on the abstract art thing.
Yeah, sure.
Are you familiar with that composer, John Cage?
I don't think so. No.
So he's kind of the Rothko of music, of like formal music. When I say formal, like, like music for like the concert hall rather than where it's more formal, right? So he started off doing music that was more sort of classically influenced, but then he became more avant-garde in the 50s and 60s. So he composed a piece called 4 minutes 33 seconds, and it's just the performer gets up on stage in front of an audience and goes to the piano and then has like a stopwatch for 4 minutes and 33 seconds, and he doesn't play a single note. And the piece of music was just whatever is going on in the audience, so people coughing or sneezing or shuffling the programs around or anything like that, right? And so like I just remember like this is like that was like a huge like debate when I was studying like music in college of like, is that really music though? Like, he didn't compose it, but there is sound, but it's not really this and that. You get a little. So he actually composed an orchestrated version of that, which is just a full orchestra not playing anything for 4 minutes and 33 seconds.
Yeah, it's douchey, and that debate should have lasted 30 seconds.
4 minutes and 33 seconds to be exact. No, here's the thing. No, like. Here's one thing why I do kind of respect what John Cage did. So his early music was more classically influenced, right? So it was more like actual music. I'm glad that he at least studied the rules before breaking them. He wasn't just some guy who was like, hey, I can make music, see, put a papi do and see, and then recorded it, and then it's just like, oh, it's groundbreaking, where it's like he just did random stuff. So no, he studied formal music and then was like, okay, I'm done with notes. Time to do something else. And so there was something where it's like he just took music and just kind of broke it, where it's like he took it to the point of like that was like a creative event horizon. Like that was the point of no return, where it's like, all right, that's the end point of music, and I never want to go back there again.
Yeah, no, I think that sucks. But there is there's this album that I don't know what it is. All I can say is that tons of famous artists, like musical artists, have cited it as a form of inspiration. It's one of those things that keeps popping up, like some rock star, some pop singer, and it's like, what is this album? And I've listened to it. It's just like nonsense. And all I know, and I'll look into this more because again, this wasn't planned. So I know it's like a fish on the cover of the album, and it's known for being like super experimental. And it sounds like one of those things that people just cite to sound smart.
Right.
And maybe we can look, because we're running out of time. Maybe we can look it up and talk about it another time, and you can tell me, because I listened to it. I was like, oh, of course, if all these artists are saying it influenced them, let's give it a listen. I'm like, this is just nonsense. but maybe you have a different opinion. And again, I'll find out what it is.
Yeah, find that out. And yeah, maybe that could be a good topic of like is it actually good and interesting and innovative, or is it just messy garbage?
And then we should also do an episode, in that same episode, we should do that Italian singer, forget his name, but this is easy to find, where he made that song that's just gibberish, but in the style of like American English. And, it was to prove a point. Have we not talked about this?
I don't think so.
It was to prove a point of how like you can make a hit like all these years, because I think it was like again a commentary on how American culture just gets exported everywhere.
Yeah,
and how it's like you just make a hit sounding American without actually saying anything. Like literally, the only real word in it is like "all right." He says a couple times, but besides that, it says "beep bop banamit." Oh, Joe, bop. And it's like, and he's just making, but it's actually like catchy.
Yeah,
and I forget his name. His nickname was like the Snaky Hips or something. Like I don't know, but I'll find that, and then we can listen to that, and you can decide if you think that's music or not. That I think is music, but also with like a cool political, like that to me is making a much better point than the guy who just played nothing for 4 minutes, 3 seconds. Like that's a cool commentary on the state, and this was like the 70s.
Yeah,
the state of like pop music at that time.
Right. Yeah, let's do it. That sounds good.
Sounds good. Das ist gut.
All right, Benjamin.
All right.
Stay reckless.
Bite the crits. Like and subscribe.